Yo, live and direct, back at it again with the Pan-African perspective. It's Bro Diallo and the Bro Diallo Show. To compensate for my lack of, ability and skill. But that won't always protect you because the computer system was mad slow, son. It was like crazy, like dragging and lagging, you know what I'm saying, son? So, once I tried to reboot it, anyway, you don't want to hear about my problems. We're here to talk about the world's problems, right? So, I'm happy to be here because there's a war on fake news, apparently. Hillary, I dropped my pen, so I'm going to have to go away from the mic for a brief second to pick up my pen off the floor, okay? Sorry. Alright, I'm back. I don't have like interns and assistants to help with that stuff. But now that Trump is in office, since working class white folks voted Trump into office, I might be able to hire some people. Because he's going to drive wages into the gutter. And he didn't lie about it. That's the thing. People say, I love Trump's honesty. Americans are so hard up for honesty from elected officials that they will elect someone that's telling them horrible truths. Just because he's honest. So, Trump said wages are too high in America, even though wages have been stagnant for approaching 4 decades now. Wages have not kept pace with profits. Wages have not kept pace with inflation. Wages have not even kept pace with administrative and CEO pay. And what's most tragic at all, wages have not kept pace with economic productivity. From following the New Deal era, the post-Civil War era, up till essentially the end of the Carter administration, whenever you saw productivity increase, when the economy became more productive. And economic productivity is not an inherently good thing. If you are socially conscious, or if you are a socialist, or if you are class conscious. Economic productivity also means more pollution, more destruction of ecosystems, more species driven into extinction, more hyper-exploitation of the world's resources and workers. But in the first world, in the United States, that also meant that workers could get a little bit more money so that they could go out and purchase more crap. But now, you can't even get that. In your submission to and cooperation with the empire, with the omnicidal capitalist empire that is America, they're not even keeping up their end of the social contract anymore. So in a situation where wages are obscenely stagnant, where wages haven't been held in place, they've been falling behind, where income has not kept pace with the rate of inflation, you have a politician in the form of Donald J. Trump tells his mostly poor and working class white support base that wages are too high in America, therefore America is no longer competitive, and wages not only should not go up, but they need to come down so that he can bring jobs back. And that is a good way to bring jobs back. If you think a job, see, I have a theory that I might share with you. But if you think a job is more important than anything else, more important than income, because I'll take an income over jobs. But people think that jobs are synonymous with income. So there's a lot of people without jobs who have income. There's a lot of people who don't work that have income in this country. A lot. And they call it unearned income. And that's income that you inherit. Because everybody, all these people are like, yeah, you work hard for your money. No, that's not the case for everybody. Donald Trump did not work hard for his money. Now, I've never met the man, but I'm pretty sure if we saw his hands, there wouldn't be any calluses, no cuts, no scars, just orange spray-on tan residue. It's probably the only thing on his soft, squishy hands. Because he didn't work for his money. You know, he didn't grind for his money. He didn't earn his money. Donald Trump is living off of what you call unearned income and dividends. Now, he says that he makes the best deals and he goes out and makes these wonderful deals and he builds these big buildings. Donald Trump, you give Donald Trump a hammer. You give him a spool of copper wire. He's a builder, right? Everybody says he builds casinos. You show him a damaged slot machine, he won't know what to do with it. So what Trump is what they call the investor class. And the investors don't even put up their own money. If you really know how investment works, it means you have a reputation, essentially. So a guy will walk up and there's a deal on the table and he says, well, I'm going to put my name and my immense wealth behind this project. Put my name up. But I'm not going to do it myself. I'm going to have a limited liability corporation, which is a whole nother species of existence. These multinational corporations and limited liability. Because, I mean, if we could just repeal limited liability, that would just balance the world out. Not really, but it'd be a big start to it. But anyway, long story short, where I'm going with this. Anyway, let's just run with this scenario. So Donald Trump will put his name up in his limited liability corporations. And if it falls through, like if you, as a worker, if you have an accident, you make a bad investment, it's on you, you're done. But as a limited liability, now, number one, the limited liability, they don't tax their income. They tax we pay income tax. They don't pay income tax. They only pay taxes, and they don't even pay taxes on that because the tax code is billions of pages. Billions in volume, state tax, local city tax, federal tax. It's just volumes and volumes that if you regular citizen, you can't run up in H&R Block or Liberty Tax, these little hood tax spots, your niece who do hair, but she do taxes during the first of the month. You can't take your W-2 to them and they can, pimp this system and go through those millions of pages of tax code and find what they're calling loopholes and things of that nature. So, basically, long story short, Donald Trump doesn't put his money up, he puts his name up. And literally, money now is basically algorithms on a computer program. It's not as though Donald Trump goes and gets $1 billion from here and takes $1 billion and gives it to someone else. All that stuff is done on credits, on promise. A credit is a promise, it's an obligation. And if it goes belly up, not only do you're not able to pursue Donald's personal wealth, the money that his initial investment is all you can go after, even if the whole thing goes belly up, because it's limited, he has limited liability. But within that limited liability arena, you're still going to have to pay thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to collect the money that he owes you. So really, these investor class, these unearned incomes, this 1%, what they've done is basically game the system so that their risk is minuscule. And that they call it externalities, the taxpayers have to pay for their losses. So Donald Trump can file for bankruptcy 4 or 5 times to protect his personal assets. Because first he puts up his assets, which he really doesn't. He puts up his investment and he makes this wonderful deal, right? The deal goes belly up. Then he forces you to have to pursue him for what he's promised he would do. And even if you are successful, you have the resources and the wherewithal to pursue him for the resources due for this wonderful deal, then he can file bankruptcy. But it's not personal bankruptcy. What he does is send whatever dummy couple corporations or dummy company into bankruptcy. And even then, you can only go after those assets. And he can keep doing this. And basically, economically, Donald Trump just takes like 50 darts and throws them all at a target. And then out of 50, you have 5 successful ventures. And he'll say, oh, look, I'm wonderful. And you just bury the other 45 unsuccessful ventures are put off on the taxpayers. Because When Donald Trump has had over 10,000 lawsuits. Law is in the public sector. We pay for the judges. We pay for the prosecutors. We pay for the staples and the paper clips and the filings and the computers and the secretaries and the bailiffs. And we pay for the janitors to polish the bench. So whenever someone is called highly litigious, and a highly litigious person is a person who stay in the courts, who stay suing or stay being sued, that is a drain on public resources. That's welfare. When Bill Gates was suing Netscape, and when Bill Gates had litigations against Microsoft and all these other startup companies, when Bill Gates was viciously trying to protect his ill-gotten patents and copyrights, he was on welfare. Because in a real, truly libertarian society, Bill Gates would have to knock on my door and be like, hey, you're pirating my software. And I could be like, so, and what you gonna do, punk? I could knock his glasses off his face, give him a wedgie, you know, give him a, what do you call that you put him in the headlock and give him an Indian burn. I could treat him like the nerd he is. And what could he do? It's libertarianism. You know, survival of the fittest. But no, this billionaire, he didn't, and well, again, he could pay goons, baby, to come. But still, for all the people that would, all I'm trying to say is the biggest recipients of public investment, public welfare, public assistance are the rich. The rich are a parasitic population of people. And for some, within the larger social contract, we're supposed to say, well, we don't mind the rich getting more because of what they bring to our lives. And what do the rich bring to our lives? Tacky casinos, you know, faulty software, highly compromised, non-intuitive software that we are pretty much forced to use because of these rotten deals that they make. And for decades, they lock other innovators out of the industry. One of the biggest media moguls of all time was slightly before, we don't recognize it now, was Ted Turner. Ted Turner founded the wonderful CNN. He made his big fortune in cable news. And he became a billionaire, but his heyday was in the before, pre-internet. You know, he was displaced by the internet billionaire class, but he was in the 80s and 90s, he was a big-time media mogul. And he stated in an interview one time, he's like, if I was starting out now, even with all the drive and innovation and hope and dreams that I have, he said, I could have never done this. Because the industry is set up for the status quo, meaning that they keep up-and-coming young talent, and that's the whole problem with monopoly capitalism, crony capitalism, and deregulated capitalism. This is not a system based on competition. You don't outcompete the next guy. You get bigger and you outbuy them. You outswindle them. But then the working class people who don't dwell in those arenas, we who work for our money, we who earn our money and pay taxes on our income, unlike Trump, unlike Obama now, since Obama's been president, his personal wealth has increased by over 1,700%. You know, just like the Clintons. Hillary Clinton talking about, when we left the White House, we were broke. And just last year, she made $50 million. Doing what? Doing what? Because if you looked at her hands, aside from the blood of Iraqi children, the blood of Libyan children, the blood of Syrian children, if you looked at her hands, besides the blood of all these people from all over the world, what are you going to see? You're not going to see what calluses, you know, abrasions. What does Hillary do? What has Hillary done? Because government jobs don't pay that. President don't even make $1 million a year. I believe, what is the president up to? $250,000, $300,000 a year salary to be president of the United States. So how did Hillary and Bill? They run a charity. How do you get $50 million? Unearned income. Now see, we who have to budget, who have to negotiate whether between, am I going to get the oil change this week or do I need some extra groceries? And you know, we who have to negotiate that, our relationship to the economy is completely different, which is fine. That's not the problem even. The real problem is that we have common interest and admiration for the people who are our inherent class enemies. If we understood what class we were a part of and acted in that interest, we wouldn't have to hate on the elites for acting in their class interest if we acted in our class interest. But we don't, because we're indoctrinated to worship these people. We really believe, there are people who really believe that there's somebody in this world who has done and worthy of, who's done $1 billion worth of work and is worthy of that $1 billion that they sit on. And in every way you calculate how labor is valued, how an individual's contribution to the larger society is measured, every way you look at it, there's no way that someone can justly and fairly, quote unquote, air quotes in the air, earn $1 million. Now you can accumulate $1 million, but you're not going to work for it. In fact, working will be the biggest obstruction. Working is the biggest obstacle to getting $1 billion. Because if you understand what work is, you know. So if you want to become a billionaire, the first thing you have to stop doing is working. As we understand work to be. You know, because what we understand work to be is, you know, if I work for you, then I'm making a, you know, contribution. I'm building something. I'm providing a service to the larger society. I'm providing a product to a larger society. You know. And if you're doing something for the larger society, then you're losing. You got to only be extracting constantly. And you can't just extract locally. You got to extract. You got to be a parasite on a global scale. But there was this list of African billionaires. Billionaires are not signs of a healthy economy. The emergence of hyper mega rich people in a society is evidence of a decadence and decaying and corruption. And I don't care if you go back to, you know, Louis XV in France. I don't care if you go back to the Praetorian Guard and the Roman Empire. I don't care. Yeah, and I'm about to blaspheme. I don't care if you go back to the opulence of the Egyptian Empire. I don't care if you go back to that Mansa Musa. Whenever you have such obscene imbalance, you have a society that is not in deep within the thralls of collapse, is on the verge of collapse. Because if we understand nothing else, with all our microscopes, with all our satellites, with all human curiosity and exploration, to look at systems, whether it's your biological system, you as an individual, you're full of systems. Central nervous system, endocrine system, your gland, your skeletal system, your digestive system. You're full of systems within your body. And all of those systems have to share with each other, work with each other, cooperate with each other. And if any system within your body goes off the rails and elevates itself above all other systems, if any particular cell begins to proliferate, totally without regulations, without obligations, you have what they call metastatic cancer. Now, if that system or that cell that goes off the rails can be encapsulated by the healthy systems of your body, then it's called benign cancer. But if that cell can convince other cells to behave like it does, then you have metastatic cancer. You're done. And what's the solution? Kill that cell. Kill it. Or hack it off. Amputate. Or burn it with radiation. Poison it with chemicals. Or hack it off with surgery. But when we look at other systems, when you look at the swamp is an entire ecosystem unto itself. You have the predators. You have the prey. You have the fauna. You know, from bottom to top of the food chains, the water cycle, the carbon cycle, systems and cycles. That's all everything is made up of. And one thing, there's one universal idea that all systems are obligated to. Whether you're dealing with a huge ecosystem, whether you're dealing with a regional or localized ecosystem, let's say like a swamp, you're dealing with a continental system such as like the tropical, the tropics, or the subtropics, or the Mediterranean areas. Whether you're dealing with a microscopic system, which is like a singular cell, has a nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, all within a membrane. And all those things, no matter what, one thing you have to know about a universal system is, there's one word, balance. If a system cannot achieve the appropriate amount of balance, then it is a doomed system. So if one component of that system goes off the rails and gets to accumulate more cytoplasm, more nutrients, more molecules, more carbon, more money, more water, less water, not enough water, drought, whatever that system, if there's too much on one side and not enough on another side, boom, you're done. And the economy is the system. And if you look, which is curious, there's this concept called biomimicry, right? Everything we do is systemic. I don't think we know how to function. Everything we do, all we can do is make connections and connect things together and then see how those connections interact with each other. That's all chemistry is, pouring different things together and observing the reaction. Then you write down in detail what the reactions are. You record what those elements are. You record the amount that you mix them and then how much energy you give it, whether you set it fire or freeze it or anything in between or just shake it up. Then you record it in very specific detail. That's chemistry. And sometimes you get a poison, sometimes you get a medicine. Sometimes you get a solid mass of substance, sometimes you get a gelatinous block. But you have to record it, you have to observe it. But everything we do is about systems and interplay and interactions of systems. Right? Yeah, I know it's a little more than that. I know a lot of you scientifically endowed individuals are rolling your heads, but I'm trying to give a simplistic view. I'm trying to link, biology and science to human society and social systems because, we do have social science and political science. And why do we have to call it that? Because that's the only way we know how to relate to things. We, no matter what we're told in our absurd mythologies about having dominion over the earth, about being created by some supernatural divine force, we came right out of the same primordial ooze that the other great apes came out of, that the bugs and viruses and the trees and branches, we came out of that same primordial ooze. And no matter how many lies or myths or folklore or doctrines we invent to tell us we're different or separate or above all that, we're still pretty much locked into that. No matter how many artificial substances and artificial structures we create to allow ourselves to pretend that we're not only are we a part of nature, but we're bound by the fundamental laws and protocols that are within such as systems. So anyway, all that to say that we are bound by nature. And so we either rebalance the economy, we rebalance the global economy and the U.S. economy, or the thing's going to break. And it's going to break bad. Really bad. Why? Because before, when systems broke, people would take up stones and throw them at the greedy caveman. Or they take up spears, and you stab 5 or 6 people that ain't with the program. Or you just have a council meeting and say, look, these people, for some reason, psychologically, they ain't together, so we're going to oust them. You can go live in the wilderness, you just step off, man. And so it was relatively, even though there would be bloodshed, it was relatively easy to rebalance a society. Because all economies were either local, tribal, village, city-state economies. And so it was, I'm sorry, I'm just, reminiscing about the good old ancient days when we could do away with tyrants relatively easy. They weren't so embedded, and we didn't worship. So there were cultures saying, listen, if somebody had this disease of avarice, if they were psychologically broken, where they wanted to accumulate material holdings well beyond what they needed, and they were willing to accumulate these material holdings to the extent where it was detrimental to other people around them. But even in the era of King Louis, you roll out the guillotines, You know, you stormed the castle, and yeah, some people had to die, but you know, they had, what, at best some cannons, some muskets. So when the psychopaths took over, it was relatively easy to wrestle control from them. But now, we're beyond stones and spears and arrows and muskets. And the system now, and now no longer can a tyrant, you know, just terrorize and be a parasite and drain a tribe, a community, a city-state, a region, even a continent. Now this is a global system. So we need a global rebalancing. And now the psychopaths, the parasites, they have nukes. And not only do they have nukes, they have millions of people on this brand new thing, relatively new thing called a payroll. There was a time when the majority of humanity were not on payroll. You know, even in feudal Europe, they gave us this sick system. They didn't even, most people never touched money. They didn't have income. They lived off of the resources they were able to grow, build, trade, and barter. You know, even when they came here, when they went to Africa and the European was like, here, give you some money for land. Like, what? How can you buy land? And what the hell is money? That's another thing. But all I'm saying is, in order to rebalance this system, it's going to be a lot more difficult. And here's the tragedy. Never in a time of history has it been easier to overthrow a tyrannical system, and never in a time in human history has it been more difficult to overthrow a tyrannical system. Because to quote some great revolutionary Marxist, I don't remember the name, but I remember the quote because it just stuck with me. It said, the ruling class is so small that we can drown them if we all spit on them. It's so many of us and so few of them. If all the people from our class spit on the people from the other class, they would literally drown. Because that's how imbalanced the world is. It's like the top 180 people in the world who have the 100 families of wealth have more accumulated wealth than the bottom 3 billion. Y'all don't hear me though. In the United States alone, I think, what is it, the number? 18 families have more personal wealth. I know maybe 12 families have more personal wealth than all of the 30 millions of, that's not even 30. How many black folks live in this country? Maybe 30 million? The numbers, you know, they play with numbers. But, you know, and then when you get to the top 100 people got more wealth, yeah, I think 80 people can double up the whole income, the entire income, than the working class. I mean, just, there's a good book that breaks these numbers down called The Spirit Level. And the spirit level, in you know, we call them levels. The carpenters have a carpenter's level. Well, they call it a spirit level. So the spirit level is not a, well, maybe I shouldn't even tell y'all this because people will run out and buy it and maybe get some real insight before they figure it out. It ain't got nothing to do with hooky spooky, supernatural, you know, Oprah Winfrey. And I think that needs to become a thing. Sidetrack, rabbit hole. We need to go ahead and say there's Oprah Winfreyans. An Oprah Winfreyan philosophy. These people who worship accumulation and believe that the system is just. It's just you have to put yourself. You can make a system better by simply asking the universe to give you a whole bunch of crap. And the world is great if I'm doing good, regardless of everybody else. You know, this whole benevolent selfishness. I don't even know what to call it, but somebody needs to sit down and really write this Oprah Winfrey, because I meet a lot of Winfreyans. Y'all out there, and many of y'all don't even know it. It's really disgusting. It's really despicable, because you got a lot of people who think they're good people, but they're really the scum of the earth. People who think they're positive, but they're really the absolute most parasitic, dysfunctional people. You know. And I call this Winfrey because Oprah Winfrey seems like a really good person. She hugs people and she tells everybody, you can achieve your dreams. And she does these wonderful, like Queen Sugar, she does these wonderful media projects. But when you really look at the depths of her fundamental ideology, it's so dysfunctional. And she has a cult following. The Winfreyans. And Winfreyanism. The Winfreyfarians and Her Imperial Majesty, Oprah Winfrey. And my main problem with the Winfreyans is they think they're good people. They think they're noble and wholesome people. At least the Trumps. At least the real capitalists. The Jamie Dimons of the world. They don't even pretend. And I think that's why people like Trump so much. We know this country is a corrupt, imperialist, fascist, racist, omnicidal, narco state, kleptocracy. But Obama pretend like Obama is as bad as Trump. But Obama is perhaps worse than Trump because Obama was able to do dirt without the level of scrutiny that Trump is receiving and Trump will continue to receive throughout his presidency. Obama got sympathy. Obama got hate from the right, but Obama was cooperating with the white. But anyway, all the way back to this concept of balance. If you look at the U.S. economy as an ecosystem, you'd say, hey, the predatory creatures are eating up all the prey, and they're going to eat themselves into oblivion. It's worse than that because the prey don't even force the predators to hunt them anymore. They run and jump in their mouths. They fight each other. They fight each other over jobs. There are no jobs. The only job is to being prey of the predatory creatures. And all the Mexicans are being eaten up first. And I want to be eaten. Because to work your life, that's consuming. You're a human resource and you're being tapped and consumed and drained. To work for a multinational corporation, to work even in a government bureaucracy where you're hated, mistrusted, your talent, your resources, you're coldly alienated from the products of your labor. You're being consumed by the predatory creature, in a predatory economy. And it's not even good because the predators don't even have to chase us down. We run and jump in their mouths. We beat each other down. The prey, we beat up each other to try to climb into the mouths to be consumed by this beast called the American economy. This predatory creature. And let me actually go to a break because I got to, and I want to talk about fake news because I'm in trouble, y'all. Because I qualify as fake news. Why do I qualify as fake news? Because any news that's not aligned with the state and multinational corporations, this is a fascist system. And fascism is a merger of corporations and state. When the corporate interests and the government interests align and represent only each other and not the citizens, that's fascism. The fasci. And Obama's as much a fascist, corporatist as Trump is. They just have different styles. You watch mixed martial arts, you have two guys that have the same objective, they might have different fighting styles. We don't seem to understand that. I'm against all fascists. If you're pro-Obama and anti-Trump, then you're not anti-fascism. You're not even anti-racism. You just like a particular manifestation or style or method, of exploitation, of imperialism. Because you Winfreyans and Obamites are just as capitalistic, just as exploitative. But anyway, let me go back as the Trumpites and the Bushites. Let me go back to the other point. I am a fake news station. I have no, air quotes again, legitimacy. I have no corporate backing. But thanks to the wonders of the worldwide internet, I'm able to get a Pan-African, radical, vegan, ecological perspective out. But I would qualify as fake news because I called Obama a fascist. That's not real. How do you know what I said is untrue? Because I don't like what you said. It hurts me. It offends me. So it can't be true. That's how you know I'm fake. How do you know? How do you determine? What do you want me to do? To go research history books? To go get some policy papers? To go look at legislation? At a timeline? Transcripts? That's too much work. And again, you know, we live in a capitalist economy. We got to work hard for our money. So you don't have time for that. You got to go off of your gut. Don't sound right. That don't sound right to me. You know. That's how people go. It don't sound right. I don't like that. It's not true. Oh, that sounds good. I believe it. So as someone who does fake news, and by fake mean non-corporate, non-establishment, I don't believe the story of 9/11. I think the government's lying. The 9/11 Commission report is trumped up. I believe and I accept the evidence that there are false flags attacks. You know, I've got some crazy ideas that are totally outside the mainstream. So if they do, and when you have both people on the right and the left agreeing, there's fake news. This fake news is an issue. Hillary, bring them to Hillary, Rodham Clinton gets on there, and all the things she could talk about when she sticks up her frightening little monstrous head. I think fake news is a problem. And then Obama got more nerve than a toothache, and that's what I want to come back and talk about, really. Obama is the Mac King daddy of fake news. And one thing, worse than Obama doesn't even want fake news. Obama wants a total information shutdown. Name a president. I challenge you. Tweet me, email me, Facebook me, call me 312-985-7834 and tell me another president that's been more pro-censorship, more aggressive at pursuing and prosecuting whistleblowers than Barack Hussein Obama. He's not anti-fake news, he's pro-no news. He don't want to give you no information. This liberal, this good man, this man of hope and change had feds kicking in doors, not for fraud, you know, not for drug trafficking, not for destroying ecosystems. Under Obama's administrations, you had multinational corporations and banks caught laundering billions of dollars in drug money, destroying ecosystems, engaging in insider trading, you know, bribery of foreign officials. All that happened. Obama was very lenient. The most lenient when it came to high-scale corporate crimes. But let a little clerk in some obscure little bureaucracy say, hey, there's some dirt going on here. I think the people ought to know about this since I'm a servant of the people. My oath to take this little job was to represent the Constitution and the people of the United States. So I'm going to give the people this hidden information. It's not just Snowden. It's not just Bradley Madden. It's not just Julian Assange. There have been hundreds of people who just say, hey, there's waste, fraud, or abuse going on in my little obscure little agency. And Obama brought down the hammer on every single one of them. And Obama wants to make whistleblowers laws. He wants to, quote unquote, strengthen whistleblower laws. But y'all crying about fake news when you should be fighting about the information lockdown. That you're not getting the proper information that you need to make informed, intelligent decisions. And even the enslaving, raping, genocide, land-stealing founding fathers said that without a free press, you don't have a democracy. Even Thomas Jefferson, that rapist, said if I was forced to choose between having a free press or a free government, I would choose a free press. And not only that, these greedy, avaricious proto-capitalists that y'all call your founding fathers, the one industry that they gave constitutional protection to was the press. No other industry, no other profession is recognized in the Constitution than journalism and the press. And they would say, hey, we would give reduced or free postage to the press to get the word out to the people. And now you have public officials talking about free. And when they're talking about fake news, they're not talking about people like me specifically. I mean, they're talking about me. I'm a fake news individual because I have no corporate sanction. I have no filter. I have no greater hand controlling me. And yes, if I chose to, I could sit up here and tell a bold-faced lie. I could say Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. I could sit here and say all kinds of absurd things that make no sense. I could do that. But that's not really the classification of fake news, because when it comes to just telling lies, the New York Times, I got two words for y'all. Manufacturing consent. Go to DuckDuckGo and put in the search engine that doesn't track you. Manufacturing consent. And it's a book and it's a documentary. You can read it, you can watch it, do both. And that'll tell you that the mainstream corporate media, Ted Koppel, CBS, they lie like big dogs. MSNBC, all the major media outlets have been caught in magnificent lies, bold lies. So if fake news is really, but let's come back to this. I want to do a music break. Come back and talk about this fake news stuff and how they about to hem y'all up and y'all going for it. But then let me just tell you this before I depart. I'm about to go off Facebook Live, and I'm just going to be broadcasting over the AM 1680 Q4 radio, on the Q4.org website, the Q4 Facebook page. You can hear me live in all of those outlets. But they're insulting you. They're basically saying you as an individual private citizen do not have the ability to distinguish fact from fiction. You are too stupid to determine what information comes into your peer review, what is accurate, sound information, journalism, and what is blatant lies or propaganda. So you're too stupid. So Obama can tell you, Hillary can tell you, CNN correspondents, Fox News Corp, they can tell you. People who are brought to you by multinational corporations, people who are bought, paid for, and sanctioned by multinational corporations or the government, can tell you what's real and what ain't really real. But little peons like me in my little corner, with my tinfoil hat, I'm a problem. Because I'm giving you information that will cause you to take actions that are not in the best interest of the multinational elite. So don't you for 1 second. I mean, but if you really think that Obama, Hillary Clinton, and even the Trump and Republicans are talking fake news, if you really think these people are upset that you, as a U.S. citizen, are not getting adequate information, if you think that's really their problem, that you're not fully and properly informed, these people are trying to defund education, then I mean, I guess you're too far gone anyway. Yeah, you do need protection from fake news. If you believe that, then you do need protection. You do need to run and jump in Obama's lap. And then in the next few weeks, jump from his lap to Trump's lap. And you do need to stay to tend to your information input. Go on and plug into the matrix. Because if you believe that, then you're too far gone. You shouldn't even be listening to this show. Log off right now. But anyway, I'm going to take a break. Musical break. And come back with some more Pan-African perspective. This is the Bro Diallo Show. I am Diallo Kenyatta. And I really appreciate you for tuning in. And I will again apologize, even though it ain't my fault. Oh, it ain't my fault. When I came in, the computer was glitching out on me. And so, I stuck with it. I started to just grab my stuff and go home. Send a text. I did send like 3 texts. I can prove it to you. To the station president. And it's like, hey, what's the deal, yo? It ain't my fault. But anyway, and obviously things are looking better now. Everything's moving the way, and the lights are blinking the way I'm accustomed to them blinking. I'm comfortable again. So, but no, it's not. Oh, okay. I'm going to see if this works. Things are slightly delayed. But the computers, man, they're going to replace us. And you think when computers replace humanity, it ain't going to be all good. But, at least they can't exploit our labors. We'll be free to starve in the streets as opposed to starving with wages. We'll be starving, bro. I don't know. Time will tell. But I'm just saying, we do need a class uprising. And not just, this isn't even a black and white thing. We do need the poor people should have inherent distrust and hostility towards rich people. And for no other reason, if you know nothing else, you got to know that the rich despise the rest of us. They don't trust us. And they're very insecure people. They spend a lot of money on security. They spend a lot of money on frou-frou stuff, but they also spend a lot of money on security. I saw Gucci Mane on some tape, and Gucci Mane's walking with like half a dozen bodyguards. Like Gucci Mane, of all people. And maybe Gucci Mane has bodyguards to protect us from him. Like their job is to contain his thuggery and his, he's real. Gucci Mane is real. At least, if nobody else, he's got Charlemagne scared to death. Charlemagne the God is scared to death of Gucci Mane. I'm sorry for this rambling. I'm trying to cue up the thing. Trying to play some progressive, conscious music, and nothing's happening. Oh, this is a nightmare. Oh, then I might have to bust some rhymes for y'all. If I can't take my musical break, if I can't do that, then perhaps y'all can hear some of my hotlines. I have some poetry, but I don't commit my poetry to memory. I think that's egotistical to memorize your poetry. Like, who are you? And why do they call it? This is, again, I'm waiting on the computer, so this is just between me and y'all. This ain't part of the show. I'll edit this out for the archives. But why people go to poetry readings and nobody's reading? Why don't they call it, like these slams and stuff, call them poetry performances or poetry recitals? Because I'd go to a poetry reading when I used to do that, and I'd be the only cat up there with papers and booklets and journals reading. Because reading is reading. We all know what reading is. But I guess they're not calling them. It's been a minute. They used to call them poetry readings on the flyers. That's back when they had flyers. I missed the era of flyers. I love flyers. People would give me flyers to different things, and I would use flyers as bookmarks. And I'd be reading a book, and I'd get to a certain page, and I'd get to see this wonderful... The flyers were so creative. The dance hall flyers, and had the girls all broke out on the dance hall flyers. The hip-hop flyers always had to do with a 40 and a blunt or something, It was like a lot of creative, visually stimulating flyers. In the era of flyers, in the 90s, in the club scene, I used to love flyers. No, I'm not a poet, sis. I didn't say I was a poet. I said I write poems. And so that's a different thing. I can cook up some oatmeal. That don't make me a chef. But yeah, I'll share some of my poetry. I promise. I'm going to share some of my poetry Friday. Might do a whole show with just me getting on here reciting original poetry. So, maybe. But I've never professed to be a poet. I know better than set myself up like that. But let's see. Y'all ready for some conscious, progressive music? Because I am. Cutting Ranks. The Stopper. Alright, thanks for tuning in live. I'm going to do some poetry Friday. What was I going to say? So you can continue to listen. I'm going off live. I'm having computer issues anyway, so I don't want y'all to see me melt down. But you can follow me on q4.org. The link is there. You can go to the Q4 Facebook page. And I think that's it, where you can listen live. Facebook page, the website. I think that's it. Anyway, thanks for tuning in live. Please stay with me till the 9 a.m. hour. We got another hour to go, y'all. Go to the website or go to the Facebook page. Tune in live. Peace.